Could it be that for extremely high skill damage commanders, that attack is just a better stat? In this video, we did some testing, and these results were surprising to me. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, a sponsored content creator for Rise of Kingdoms, and today we're doing a follow-up to our video about what stats you should choose for your commanders. In the previous video, we looked at Attila Takeda. We were covering attack and defense. Today, we're running the same test with YSG and Nebuchadnezzar, two very, very high skill damage commanders in Rise of Kingdoms, and these results were honestly a little surprising to me. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, then do me a favor and smash that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. The reason I'm making this video and the reason I'm about to give you the conclusion to these tests up front is because so many of you liked the previous video that we did. So because you all threw so many likes on that previous video, we're going to jump to the conclusion really quickly. First, however, I want to show you a poll that I did asking my entire community on YouTube which stat they thought would be most important for Nebuchadnezzar with Esong. Is it attack? Is it defense? Or is it health? 58% of people thought that attack was the best stat, even though technically defense is the highest stat. 13% of people chose that, and 29% of people thought it would be health. This is actually pretty important because when I reached out to a whole bunch of people that are archer experts, they all said, Chisgule, I would pick defense. But when I ran the tests, the results could not have been further from the truth. Attack was the better stat for the Nebu YSG combo, and not by a little, by a lot. Now, I couldn't tell you if health was better because unfortunately, I don't have enough archer health gear to get enough of a stat swing from one stat to another to be able to observe it. But before we get into how we ran this test and what this test really means, I want to tell you up front, because I promised all those likes, I promised I would do this, so please like the video if you like this, but when I used Nebu Esong with attack instead of defense, using a 53% stat swap, switching from all attack to all defense, I had a better ratio of trades for severe wounds. I had more troops remaining, and the fight was faster. Attack won literally in every single way. But of course, we need to get into a little bit of how this test was run, because it's not a perfect situation. It's not a perfect representation of what it's going to be like to use Nebu in the field. So let's talk about this methodology. The general approach that we took is using my Nebu Esong with this talent build, and we smashed into a garrison over and over with a Zenobia primary, Charles Martel secondary. Thank you again, Cortex, for doing the testing. Here's the build that Cortex was using. Now, the builds aren't all that important. What really matters is that they were consistent, and the only thing that changed is 53% of stats. In one round, we had 53% attack. In another round, we had 53% defense. And for the duration of the video, for what it's worth, the garrison had a solid 53.5% of stats for the entire time, and they didn't change them around across any of the trials. In the testing that we did, we ran 15 trials of each. That's 30 trials total, 15 for attack, 15 for defense. And that matters in part because there is a lot of randomness in the archer builds we were using. First of all, there's Phoenix Tail arrows, a chance to trigger damage. There's also whistling arrows, a chance to boost damage dealt by 25%. There is also the second skill of Esong, giving you rage and also 100% archer attack. And this, by the way, is why the stats are really kind of about the same between attack and defense between Esong and Nebu. And I want to emphasize again, I didn't test health. Health might just be better. And if we've got enough likes on this video, I will hunt around and find someone in my kingdom and make them test with me for 2 hours if they can find enough health. and they've got a Nebu expertise. So throw a like on here, and if enough people like it, I'll go through all the extra hoops. There's more randomness. The additional randomness comes in Nebu's 4th skill, reducing the rage of the garrison. Let me show you the gear swap I did real quick so that you can keep me honest on the fact that it was a solid 53% swap. Okay, for the attack test where we've got 53% attack, here is what we're doing. We're using the Dragon's Breath helmet and gloves, which, by the way, gives a 3% set bonus for attack. We're using the Revival Plate Special Talented for 10%. Weirdly enough, a Sakura Fubuki for 4% attack. Boots, the edged boots, 2.5% attack. Then we've got the 5% token. And in addition, we've got a 10% attack city skin, bringing us at a grand total of 53% archer attack. Okay, the way that we get the defense is super weird, but we've done it. We've got 4% defense on the Helm of the Phoenix, not special talented, 5% defense from Plate of the Eternal Empire, 20% defense from the Archer set bow, 10% defense from the Revival Greaves. We've got 2% defense from Seth's Brutality, 2% defense from the Sturdy Boots, and a cool 5% defense from the token, and 5% defense from the city skin, giving us a grand total of 53% defense swing. We did it. Here is the report when the defense is boosted, that 53%, and here is a report when attack is boosted 53%. As we roll the footage of what the testing kind of looked like, I want to emphasize that just like in the previous round of testing, we looked at the severe wounds of the attackers, the defenders, the units remaining, which in this case is the attacker, and if the attacker lost, we had a negative number for the units remaining, by however much the defense won by. And in addition, we looked at the total time that it took to run the fight. Now, that negative number for the units remaining is actually kind of a big deal because when we had attack, the attacker did not lose in any of the 15 trials, and in only one trial was it maybe close. But when we had defense, the swing was so pronounced that we went from winning every time to losing 1/3 of the time. 5 out of the 15 attempts when I had defense instead of attack were losses for the attacker. So this swing was so pronounced that it went from I win every time to now I can lose. This is actually a pretty big deal. And again, unfortunately, I don't know if health is the better defensive stat for this particular pairing, and health will be better than attack. That's something we can go and learn. But let's talk about the results that we do have. The difference here, when we had attack boosted versus defense boosted, for the duration of the fight. For attack, the duration was 101 seconds. For defense, it was 134 seconds on average. It was just over half a minute longer to conclude the fight when you had more defense. So for Ark of Osiris, for rallies in KVK, attack gives you more pressure, and that pressure is meaningful because you might take the garrison before they reinforce it, or you might apply so much pressure so fast that they start taking really negative trades just by virtue of having so much upfront damage. In addition, if we look at the number of average units remaining, when I had attack, the attackers right over here had an average of almost 45,000 troops remaining, whereas when we used defense, the average was 21,500 troops remaining. Well, you did not win as convincingly with defense on these commanders than when you have attack. But there's more. If we look at the ratio of the trades, this is the ratio of how many units do I lose for every unit of the enemy that I kill. The ratio was still positive. It was still good. It was 0.68 units that I lose for every unit the enemy loses when I had attack. But that number became worse at 0.79 units that I lose if I switch to defense for every unit they lost. Again, the lower that number is, the better. And just how significant is that difference? You may say, just like I said in my last video, Chisgule, you're talking about a trade ratio that's only different by 0.11. Is that a big deal? That's a huge deal. If the garrison loses 1,000,000 troops, if I use attack, I am going to lose 105,000 less troops. Almost 106,000 less troops. Using attack versus defense, that is the difference between a report that says, oh, the garrison lost 1,000,000 and we lost 790,000, and the garrison lost 1,000,000 and we lost 680,000. That's another way to think about it. It's a big difference. All we're talking about is using a different stat. And you may think, Chisgule, well, come on, how easy is it to swap your stats anyways? And how representative is this really for a rally? And that is a fair question to ask. What is this situation representative of? Well, certainly it's representative for Ark of Osiris, I would think, if you put together a rally and you launch it on the target and you just don't reinforce it. What's going to win, the garrison or the rally? And, ooh, yeah, hello, Nebu YSG. That's impressive. Now, granted, this is a Zenobia Charles. It's a different story against a Theodora, that's for sure. This is also representative in an open field brawl where it's one-on-one. Of course, most open field brawls are not one-on-one, and a commander like YSG enjoys the benefit of tons of area of effect damage. So does Nebuchadnezzar. But the argument could also be made that they will take tons of area of effect damage, and so defense has higher value because you're mitigating so many sources of damage as well. I would say in this instance, my takeaways here is very practically, if I'm focused on this particular pairing, or in general, perhaps high skill damage commanders, I might want to use an attack token instead of a defense token. Let's just start there. Easy swap, easy optimization. I'm going to pop an attack token right now. In addition, when you look at your city skin, I still think there's a very good chance that health will give you better efficiency than attack. But if enough people like this video, I will go and test it. I will find somebody who has enough archer health on gear and we'll go and test it to make a meaningful swing in that health. But between attack and defense, if I'm looking at city skins, oh yeah, I'm going to focus on attack. And let me tell you what's looking real good right now. Flight of the Heron's looking real good. Real good. And I know people lose their mind over 5% skill damage. Dude, let me tell you, if you're using all archers, this is where it's at, baby. Ooh. 10% attack? Yeah, that's the sort of thing I'm looking for. In addition, when we talk about gear upgrades, and this is a big deal, if you care about your archers in the open field, and we need to test more archer pairs, I am open to doing that. And again, I know I've said this a couple times, but I just look to see how many likes there are, and that guides the way. It's likes or views. These videos don't get as many views, so there's got to be a jam ton of those likes. I don't know what a jam ton is, but when it comes to equipment, the thing that I'll point out is that when you're making your upgrades, for instance, if you're looking at upgrading, let's say, a helmet, you might say, oh man, I've got this revival helmet. What could I upgrade to? Well, at the legendary tier, you might find yourself looking at, say, attack. If you can make an upgrade that takes you out of defense and into attack for your archers, that's a great pick. I don't know if health gear is better, but I can tell you that I probably would focus on attack gear. And there are some very tactical, by the way, some very tactical recommendations. To give an example, that helmet is one piece of gear where you've got defense and it switches to attack. Another piece of gear where it starts with defense is, say, Revival Greaves. And what happens if you use that legendary from the Lucerne Scrolls? You could switch that over to attack. That seems like a pretty nice swap to me. Now, I'll say that for archers, there's a lot to keep in mind with the set bonuses, and it gets a little tricky. I think you do definitely want the 2-piece revival bonus, because guess what that gives? Troop attack. However, for super endgame players, how much does this matter? And I would say probably less, because I still think that for the most part, more stats is probably better. In other words, I would not yet make massive sacrifices in order to get more attack on my gear. I would still gamble that going all in on the Dragon's Breath set is better than trying to piecemeal together all attack pieces. But I could be wrong on that. These results were really impressive, and I'm eager to do more testing. This style of video generally gets less views than my other videos, so I'll be looking to see, do people like this or not? And if so, we'll test health, we'll test some other things as well. And for those of you that made it to the end of the video, I've got a little bonus to share with you, courtesy of Cortex. Cortex, I appreciate you. Thank you. Cortex went in and we did a little bit of dueling. Attila Takeda versus Alex Harold. And the thing we were testing was not Attila Takeda or Alex Harold. It was actually the Ring of Doom. Is the Ring of Doom good on Alex and Harold? And just how good is it? In the 15 trials that we ran with no other gear. And this is a big deal because I think it's going to emphasize, it's going to exaggerate how good the Ring of Doom looks. I'll put the numbers up on the screen, but let's just say Ring of Doom looking real good. Looking real good for how it influenced the outcome of those fights. Very impressive. Thank you, Cortex, for that extra sharing. Thank you also for sticking with me for 3+ hours of testing and tabulating data and trying to draw conclusions. I think these results are really interesting, and I think we have a lot more testing to do. For me, the easy swaps that we talked about with City Skin and Attack and Defense Rune is something that everybody should look at. Gear is a bit more advanced, but the thing that I find myself really scratching my head about is that there were all these Attila Takeda folks that were super obsessed with Attack, and we kind of proved that maybe Attack wasn't right. But why haven't I heard the Archer players making a ton of noise about Attack potentially being the best stat if Attack is such a good stat? I don't know. I find myself really intrigued here, and I want to do more testing. So subscribe so you can see what happens next.